After 20 years of marriage, I was forced to call the police on my wife after she assaulted our daughter. Now I'm struggling with divorce, betrayal, family fallout, my depression, and the overwhelming challenge of rebuilding a safe home alone. Hi folks of Reddit. My wife and I, after 20 years of marriage, are at a crossroads following an incident in December. We have 2 children, 17M and 15F, who are typically flexing their independence, though they are both really good kids. Honest, smart, talented in their own ways. I'm going to be deliberately light on background here in order to keep this shortish. I've suffered chronic major depressive disorder my entire adult life, and one of the major failings of my condition is I don't cope with chronic stress well at all. Good in a crisis, quick to act rationally when needed, but I tend to shut down with chronic stress. After 9 years in a very stressful IT role, I resigned in November to take a break before looking for something less stressful. Last day was the Friday before Christmas. Historically, I've been the earner, the creative, the voice of reason, and the more academic achiever. MT wife has always been the well-organized one, as well as the better cook. She'd consistently been in high-level administrative roles since we met and earns a good income. She's generally an excellent parent when it comes to the day-to-day stuff, organizing holidays, social activities, all of that stuff. However, she has an angry streak, and I recently come to the realization that she's quite the covert narcissist. Over the last few years we've clashed quite a bit about how we raise the kids. In the last few months we've clashed heavily about our daughter's new BF. He's a very nice kid, respectful, sweet to my daughter, they're madly in love it seems. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, he has altered our daughter's perspective on what a normal family looks like and how it operates. For perspective, my wife has generally ruled the family and generally has things her way. I tend to give in whenever there's a conflict, as I like to keep the peace, so the kids have never really enjoyed the flexibility or independence they'd like. Now that our daughter has seen how different, read better, it can be, she's rebelled. Late last year she left to stay with her BF's family without our knowledge. After several days of us trying to convince her to return home, she only agreed to return if changes were made in the home. Evidently, the changes weren't substantial enough, and only a few weeks later she left again. I was sympathetic to our daughter's position while my wife started referring to her as lost and told me I'd have to deal with her in future. She came home, but spent as much time away as possible as she wasn't comfortable at home. This prompted me to initiate a discussion with my wife about our poor communication. I suggested a marriage counselor to help us reconcile our differences and help us find a healthier means to communicate, as we usually spiral into her losing her temper and me giving in to keep the peace. Not healthy. Over the remainder of the year I'd suggested this numerous times as we'd grown increasingly distant, to the point I'd spend nights sleeping on the couch. I had also recommended she look into anger management some years ago when our son went through this phase. Ironically, her response to this was, go ***** yourself. After discussing my mental state with my doctor, he recommended I should talk to a psychologist. So I'd had 2 sessions in December to address depression and burnout, as well as the state of our marriage. Bear in mind that I'd just resigned and was under ridiculous pressure to hand over 9 years of my role to 2 staff who were just not equipped to take it on. On Christmas Day I put on my best brave face and tried to enjoy the day with the wife's family. Food, drink, I tried to keep in the spirit. However, with the work stress I'd suffered and leaving my role only days before, plus the lack of sleep over the recent months, I simply wasn't feeling it after about 5 hours and decided to take myself home. That evening the wife said things needed to change, I agreed, and again suggest a marriage counselor. She again refused as she's convinced I'm the only one with a problem. She's perfect, I'm the one who needs to change. I said, I can't go to marriage counseling for both of us, and that's where it was left. We didn't talk much after that. We'd made no plans to NYE, nor any annual trip over the school holidays. Australia, the long break is over Christmas and January. It was tense and I found it extremely difficult to talk to her as every conversation about anything meaningful became a fight. So, the incident occurs before New Year's Day. Our daughter is at the train station after seeing her BF that day and called to see if one of us can collect her to save the 20-minute walk. Being a Sunday, the buses aren't very regular in our suburb, so the wife goes to get her. Evidently in the car on the trip home the wife mentions NYE at her sister's house, while our daughter says she's already made plans with her BF as we didn't have any. I later found out my wife had made plans on Christmas Day for the family and simply hadn't told us. I had also known about my daughter's plans but hadn't mentioned them to my wife as I wasn't aware we had any other plans. They're arguing about it as they walk in the front door and I'm sitting quietly on the couch. We had a 3-way argument about who knew what and what we were going to do. I side with my daughter and support the notion that she keeps her plans, which is met with daggers from my wife. So she focuses on me and the fact that I haven't supported her position, which develops into an argument about how we don't communicate. When I point out that the reason we don't communicate is it always ends in a fight, she decides to follow my daughter into her bedroom to verbally attack her next. I'm bracing for the usual verbal tirade followed by silent treatment for a few days. Then I hear my daughter scream from her bedroom. I leap into action and round the door to see my daughter on the floor in a defensive position with arms around her head, my wife standing over her with blind rage on her face. I grab at my wife's wrist and scream at her to get out, though she quickly pulls away. I think I must have made the subconscious realization that if I continued this line of action, it will be me in the back of a police car, so instead I repeatedly order my wife to get out, without leaving the room. At this stage I don't actually know what's happened as I didn't see anything. She eventually leaves the room and we're arguing in the lounge room, all the while I'm ordering her to leave the house, knowing full well that when she gets this angry it takes considerable time for her to calm down. I just want her out so I can see to my daughter. She refuses to leave, even after I threaten to call the police, so I tell my daughter to join me and her brother in the front room while I make the call. The Christmas tree suffers her wrath next and shards of glass from ornaments now litter the lounge room. After several minutes on the phone, all the while I'm telling my wife I haven't given them any address details and can hang up at any moment, I eventually give the operator the address and details of the domestic violence. After I'm advised a unit is being dispatched and end the call, I let her know the police are on the way. I think she realized I wasn't bluffing and begins packing a bag in a rage, then leaves. Of course, I call the emergency line back and ask them to cancel the unit, but they advise that given the type of incident they will probably come anyway. After the incident it's the usual reports, statements, intervention order, court hearings, etc. 3 of us are now living in the house and the wife has very little contact. I don't know the outcome of the criminal hearing as we weren't required to be present. We've had a few face-to-face meetings to discuss what to do next and I've also made it clear that this is the end of our marriage. I've suggested that an apology to our daughter would be a good place to start, though nearly 6 weeks later none is forthcoming. At our last meeting I wanted to discuss how she can come home and fix things for the kids' sake, but was struck by her stance on the incident. She asked me if I regret calling the police and if I'm sorry for how it's affected her. For perspective, I learned later that my wife had slapped my daughter in the face, thrown her to the floor and kicked her before I entered the room. Of course, in the calm light of a new day I absolutely felt that I'd done the right thing to protect my daughter. However, my wife believes we could have handled all this without the police involved and that she is the victim. She's hiding the details of the incident from her family to protect my reputation with her family. There are a couple of other little nuggets of conversation she'd relayed which indicate that the people she has talked to about this are all shocked as I've always been such a gentleman in the past. She's playing the victim card hard. Finally, I'll be the first to admit I'm not the perfect husband or father. Depression and COVID have certainly taken a lot from me and I do wish I could be better than I am. I have no doubt that my condition has had a considerable impact on my wife's state of mind. I'm also acutely aware that it's really not easy for you folks to make impartial judgments based solely on the statements of one party. That said, AITA for calling the police? Edit, I've only just realized I can edit the post, Reddit noob. Here are the updates. Some clarifications. More than one person has suggested I'm fabricating these events. I do wonder if this happens a lot in this community, however, I've decided not to give this line of thinking any further fuel. The overwhelming response so far seems to be I'm NTA for calling the police, but I certainly am for letting it get this far. Part of the reason I came to Reddit with this is to get uncut perspectives of people outside of the very small crew I have to discuss this with. I'm well aware that I have some serious failings as a father and I make no excuses for that. I absolutely seek no sympathy for my own failings, nor do I expect anyone to completely understand how I've made the decisions I have. That said, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for the understanding and advice I've received already. I won't try to reply to every comment or answer every question. This has already grown beyond what I can reasonably handle. As to divorce proceedings, yes, this is a given. I made up my mind on that in the few days following the incident. In Australia we have to be separated for 12 months before divorce is granted, so I'm 6 weeks down, 46 to go. When I stated we need to fix things, I only meant to the extent that she is still the mother of my children and I still need to provide a stable home. In light of the responses here it's pretty clear most people think this isn't the right move and I should keep her away at all costs. I'll admit freely that I see my own ability to run the house and parent my children in such a poor light as to consider it better to have my wife in the home. I suppose it's pretty clear from this statement just how broken I've become. I'm also deeply ashamed, in hindsight, that I've demonstrated this weakness to my children. I am now resolved to keep the wife away and to build a better home without her. Keep it private, or tell the world. If it's not evident already, I've already changed my mind on this. Up to now I've been keeping this very private and have deliberately avoided contact with my wife's family such that I don't influence her support network. I may just send this thread on to them, we'll see. What's clear to me now is that she has used this tactic to maintain control over the narrative. Personally, I don't actually care what people think of me, but I'm now acutely aware that my truth has to be exposed for the benefit of my children. I need to demonstrate that I'm doing the right thing for them. I need to have their backs and stop enabling her. Did I allow my 15-year-old daughter to live with her BF? Hells no. Can I physically stop her from leaving? Absolutely not. But, you're dead right, I cultivated a home life which forced her to seek a healthier living situation through inaction. To be clear, on both of the occasions she left I pursued her return with every means at my disposal, including agreements to change our home life. I'll also admit I don't really know how to provide the healthy home they need, so allowing her to spend time with her BF I see as a positive. I absolutely expect plenty of people to disagree with this thinking, but I trust my daughter to make good choices for herself. I only wish I hadn't forced her to make them. Narcissistic abuse. I've only just discovered during a session with my psychologist in December that I am in fact the product of a somewhat abusive and somewhat narcissistic mother. Apparently this makes me a perfect target for a narcissistic spouse. While I've always known our marriage wasn't as healthy as it could be, I'd always felt this was due to my own faults, which has always been reinforced by my wife. Because she systematically dismantled all of my confidence and close relationships over the course of years, I'm left with perhaps two people to confide in and neither of them had the insight into my marriage to point out the abuse. It's only through self-reflection and reading that I even discovered that this was actually abuse at all. If my daughter hadn't left, forcing me to reflect on our home and marriage, I might never have realized. One commenter suggested I actually wanted my wife back for my own benefit. While I don't agree with the comment sentiment, upon reflection there is some truth to this. One of my many weaknesses is tackling problems which I perceive as too big to handle, and trying to work out how to deal with divorce, financial circumstances and joblessness certainly qualifies. I wanted her to come back and take care of the hard stuff. I needed her to make it easier for me. I'd even have given in to the abuse again if necessary. However, after our last face-to-face where she accused me of being the antagonist only a week ago, I've started developing a spine. Starting now, ******* that noise. I need to improve myself and be a better father, alone. This also marks twice in 2 days I've been told I should get my children into therapy. Honestly, that never even occurred to me, that's how far gone I am, evidently. Thank you, this is clearly good advice. Folks, please continue to knock some sense into me, I need it. Part 3. I'd like to apologize to all the comments I haven't or won't address, there are just too many to keep across. I will try to address some of the salient and repeated items here. This will also likely be my last contribution to the topic for some time, as the attention this topic has received, including some fairly obnoxious responses, is proving to be its own form of additional stress. Please accept my heartfelt gratitude for the constructive and informative comments. To everyone who has stated YTA for being complicit, weak and unwittingly abusive, I hear you. Several commenters suggest I'm not taking responsibility for my shortcomings and that I blame my wife for everything. I honestly don't care about blame. If admitting to my faults and making a genuine evaluation of cause in a public setting doesn't constitute taking responsibility, I'll admit I don't know what does. For example, I'm a doormat. Why? Because I don't like conflict. Why? Conflict equals pain. Why? I can never win. Why? Because that's how my family was. Right, so it's been a pattern since childhood, there's your problem. So how to fix it? Buggered if I know, I have no idea what a healthy conflict looks like. I guess I should ask someone who knows and get some instruction. Is that taking responsibility? Does that mean my wife has no part in this problem? I think not, she's probably come from a narcissistic parent and doesn't know any better either. Surely, she has to take some responsibility also? Many comments have suggested there's a lot more to the lead up to the situation than I've outlined here, and of course, you're correct. I will in no way detail the complete history of how we got to this point. Honestly, I've become uncomfortable with how much details is already here and the assumptions and conclusions many commenters have based on this little information. This has served to highlight my failings as a parent, partner and homemaker. However, I fear any additional detail or justification will result in vitriol. I won't apologize for not subjecting myself it. To those who have had a genuine curiosity, I would dearly love to engage in discourse, though I no longer feel this is the place for it. Do I have my own narcissistic tendencies? I honestly don't think so. Selfish, self-absorbed and self-righteous? Arrogant even? Many would agree that's a fair conclusion, as do I. However, I won't apologize for being honest, doing what I think is best, misguided though it may be, my intellect, my various disorders, or my peculiar, theatrical turn of phrase. Writing from the I is what I know. I'm an engineer, not a novelist. In conclusion, I am in therapy. I will seek therapy for my family. I will do better as a father. I will seek divorce. I will make a healthy home for my children. I will learn to cook again. I will seek sustainable employment. I will get better sleep. I will communicate the details of abuse to everyone I know. I will learn to foster healthy boundaries and healthy discourse. I will lose weight and seek better health. I will learn to be better organized. I will seek healthy outlets for my pain. Finally, I will seek to instill these and many more qualities in my children. Thank you for your attention.